Friends, welcome back. We have a very special guest today. His name's Brian J. Sheen, and he has a fascinating story with Scientology to share with us. He just recently released a book called Relentless: Rescuing My Daughter from Scientology, which, as I understand, Brian, is still an ongoing process, which we'll get into. And he has indeed been relentless. And I first came across Brian's work several years ago when he put these incredibly powerful videos, which I'm going to link in the description, breaking down with these chalkboards, beautifully done and very concise, and one of the most just telling it exactly what it is, what I've been trying to communicate in these videos.
After releasing part 1 of this video series on the Church of Scientology's practice of disconnection and extortion, a question I often heard was, how is it possible that loving relationships with family members could be ripped apart by the cult of Scientology if they really were close and loving? A great question. And the answer might not surprise you. The Church of Scientology's massive, non-stop fraud and mind control. I became involved with this organization in 1970 when I was 17, looking for answers to life. I was in fear of being drafted to Vietnam in a couple of months. I had just had an amazing out-of-body experience at a Pink Floyd concert where I had a spiritual opening I wanted to understand. I was in Midtown Manhattan one day when a pretty female Scientology recruiter who roamed these streets convinced me to take a free personality analysis test in their nearby church headquarters. Upon giving me my test results, I was told all the answers to life I had to life's questions could be answered by their church's founder, L. Ron Hubbard.
So, Brian, could you please introduce yourself to the audience, and then we'll get started on talking about this crazy, crazy story that you have to share.
That's great. My pleasure. You know, Doug, you've had experiences and you're doing all of this advocate work like I am. I'm wondering, I'm going to put my headphones on. I think it might give you better sound, but you tell me.
Sure, man.
I wanted to give you a little bit more direct sound because I'm here on a farm, what they call a finca in Colombia right now.
Writing a book in the mountains, right?
Writing a book in the mountains, and there's a beautiful place a few hours outside of Medellin called Jerico, and although Jerico, I'm constantly reminded Jerico, and it's this town as if you're 100 years back in time. You can feel safe to walk at 2, 3 in the morning, and the walking you do, I have to walk 40 minutes up and down mountain roads that are very shaky to get into town. And I go to my favorite coffee place, and they have really great Wi-Fi there. You know, I'm hoping the Wi-Fi will stay good where I am. It has been working really good.
It's okay. You're coming in and out.
Good.
On the pixelization, the closer you are, it looks like, the better. I can see your face perfectly right there. And then when you fade into the light back there, you get a beautiful face, man. Show it. When you fade back into the light, Brian, we lose you.
I got you. I got you. Good. I will do definitely take those notes, sir. Good notes. Yes. So basically, you know, my experience in Scientology, like so many, began in the late 60s due to my experimentation with drugs. Particularly my first guru back then was Timothy Leary. And it was basically, you know, to drop out and just kind of be in and go further. And I had some really wild experiences, some horrible experiences, but mostly I would say tremendously positive in my life at that time. Until I had an experience where I was outside of my body. I had these intuitive powers. I had these strange visions and ability to know what a person was saying before they said it, and it was very real to me. And I watched a Pink Floyd concert as they introduced their album Atom Heart Mother at the Fillmore East. We're talking, I guess, 1969, I guess. I sometimes mix up the years. Back then,
Brian, don't rub it in. I love this history.
It was in the 60s.
You got to grow up in the era that I felt like I missed. This is so awesome to hear. I'm living vicariously through your experience.
It was, I had a lot of fun, Doug. I wasn't looking to stop, but I had this experience, this out-of-body experience on some LSD at the Pink Floyd concert, 4th row center at the Fillmore East. I mean, it was pretty spectacular. And I watched it from the ceiling. And at the end of the trip, I heard this voice. It said, "It's not the drugs." And I kept hearing the voice. And it was very real to me. And at that moment, I stopped taking drugs and I went on my spiritual search to do transcendental meditation, to do yoga, to do this, to do that, looking for answers, because I really, as much as I appreciated my experience, I had done dozens and dozens of trips and never had something like that happen. And that was significant for me. And I wanted to experience it naturally. And as I did different things, and whether it was Gestalt therapy groups, which we would have back then, and all sorts of other types of New Age, before even the term New Age came out. Mm-hmm. It was the hippie age, I guess. Yeah. We were identified as, but we were searchers, and we were looking. The world was in chaos, and there was the war in Vietnam, and it's hard to imagine. And, you talk about those times. It's also the times when every day you turned on the television and you saw how many died that day of US, and then of the Vietnamese, the South Vietnamese, and the civilians. And you saw these body bags, and they showed you the body bags. They didn't do that in the Iraq War. They gave you the count, and they showed you the things. And back then, a young man like myself, because I was 17, had at 18 to look forward to the draft. And so the idea that I soon became a number, and I was given a number based on my birth date, a lottery number, based on that number, whether or not you would be called up to go into the Army. And this is while we were fighting the war in Vietnam, and there were many people being drafted, and it was a whole thing back then. And you wanted to move away from that, to do something meaningful. And I guess that's the hook that happened to get me into Scientology as a 17-year-old, looking for those answers. And I have to admit, I had doing TR0 for 2 hours. I had an amazing experience. I didn't realize what I was doing, although it seemed similar to a Buddhist meditation I had done before, an open eye meditation. But he called it something different, but I didn't really care what you called it. But I had a great experience, a very natural experience, again, as I did in my LSD trip. And who knows, maybe somebody's saying I'm having the repeat of it or whatever. But it really left a really strong indentation and motivation inside of me to say, whoa, here I am looking for the answers. I've stopped drugs. I mean, I had stopped. I was searching. I wanted an answer. And I said, wow, you just experienced something like that in this drill on this $10 course that you did called the communication course. And I guess that's what really began it, Doug, for me. It was so many external and internal circumstances that was going on in my life. But like so many of us back in the 60s, I mean, we weren't caught up on texting. It wasn't invented yet. We weren't caught up on our smartphones and everything else that this new world offers us. We were caught up in networking together and unifying and coming together and banding together physically. Okay. Answering machines had not yet been invented.
Wow.
There was no call waiting or voicemail. That wouldn't come for 30 years.
Right.
You get the idea? So what people did is they gathered together. That's what brought Woodstock on. That what brought Atlantic City, and that brought many other different types of major demonstrations and be-ins in Central Park, to be part of something, to be part of a transformative change that
And you know what, Brian?
wanted. Yeah.
You know what? It's so amazing listening to you talk, because you just described my life. And even though I didn't grow up, and I'm very jealous of the era that you got to experience, that sounds absolutely amazing. I would have been doing the exact same thing you did. But I got into it too, Brian, because of the drugs. When I did auditing, when I did the TR0, I felt stoned. It was the exact same thing
Exactly.
was happening when I was using drugs.
It was
very
that
easy
stony,
for me to transfer
stony
over.
feeling.
And
Yeah.
whatever you got on your LSD trip, Brian, what I got when I was smoking weed, those experiences happened exactly in Scientology. And I was like, Brian, I don't have to use drugs anymore. My parents are going to be so happy. And then, of course, we find out later, right, Brian, that we can go into that meditation or trance state, that we were being hypnotized without our knowledge, and that we had access to that all along, man. But it took, isn't it amazing though, right? Wouldn't you have, I would have rather just stuck with the weed and not felt that was
No,
maybe I'm
see, I
saying I
don't
would
feel
have
that
rather
way.
have done that than going into Scientology. Maybe not in
No, I don't-
retrospect. Is that what you're talking about? Like it was part of your spiritual journey, so to speak?
You know what? Until this thing with my daughter, it's been over 6 years now that all of a sudden I got declared a suppressive person. So we've been disconnected, and I've got a grandson that I've never met. I didn't even know she was pregnant, and she went through all of that. And I get some outside channels that feed some information into me sometimes, and some photos and things like that. But you know what? I walked away from Scientology because they didn't deliver what they promised. And I realized that it was always in the future, this would cure that. And just wait, the next new breakthrough comes through, and then you're going to reach that. And I just didn't see that happening. And if it had been happening in truth, it always seemed, it was a strange phenomenon I noticed. The guys that really went up and got highly trained, like I did, because remember, I got into it really intensely. I ended up joining the Sea Org. I ended up going to Flag and studying underneath LRH. So, I was pretty intense back then.
Totally. And I can't wait to talk about all that. And finish up with that thought, Brian, and then we'll walk the audience through all of those experiences that you're talking about.
Please.
So I don't want to interrupt your thoughts. So finish what you were saying. But
no, reel me in, Doug. Reel me in, okay?
Just great,
yeah, that's all right. I'm a marlin. I'm a marlin jumping up and down. You got me out there, and come on, baby. Yeah, reel me in, baby.
Okay, I'm putting you back into ethics, Brian. I'm going to assign you the condition of doubt, and you need to suffer on up through the conditions so we get on the same page here. No, dude, there's no formula. It's just I know what your story is because I read your book, but we're going to step people through it. The question so where we're taking it from, Brian, is you were a typical hippie man trying to avoid the draft. I'd imagine there's a massive amount of fear because I went through that too when I was growing up. Like I was like, dude, I can't kill anybody or do anything like that. What am I gonna do if that seeking aspect is what it sounds like led you and me and many other hippies into Scientology. So what happened once you took to TR0 and you had the same experiences when you had an LSD trip? Let's pick it up from there.
Yeah, and then it just kept building on itself. I enjoyed the early things, and I still think there's I think self-analysis, the book. I've never said this out loud, but I will. I think it's a wonderful book. I think it's a brilliant book to at that time, because I understand. I've studied now all of that time-wise and time frame-wise, And it's so simple, and it's actually helpful. Learning how to increase your recall and learning how to turn on your sensory perceptions. And there is no particular message in there. It's just doing some basic, recall stuff earlier, and earlier. And, that is the nature of how the mind is built. Mm-hmm. So even though it's really not his genius that developed that, and we'd have to go back more to Sigmund Freud to kind of look at who kind of really brought it into play, which he then kind of took it and put his own titles and names and this and that to it. How he likes to do that and says, I am the source, and I did all that. I said, no, you copied them. But that's okay. Put all that aside. I never minded my experience, because even when I left, and my heart was broken, and it cost me a lot of money, and I put a lot of intensive time in for 5 years, I never had the regrets until the thing with my daughter. Because when I left goodbye, but he inspired me to want to read the Vedas. He inspired me to want to look at some of the sources that he brought out on the briefing course and other of the higher courses. I said, that's where he was inspired. So let's go back there. And so I went, and I've spent over 20 years going to India and meeting with the guru and understanding the Bhagavad Gita and understanding Patanjali, and, to meditate for many, many years. And so I always appreciated that some of those roots were things he mentioned. And I said, I want to look at that myself and come to my own conclusions.
That's exactly
this is his take.
Yeah,
this is his take. And that's cool. And I see how he's put this all together and codified it. And okay. And back then I had no problems of it. I didn't know he was a fraud.
Yeah.
I didn't know his research was bullshit. I didn't, and so I was wearing those rose-colored glasses until I got so involved going up the levels, spending a lot of time. I then went from the New York org to the St. Hill org in England, and I studied there, and eventually did up through class 6, what they call the St. Hill Special Briefing Course. And I kind of was also teaching, by the way, the communications course to make some money in order to pay for myself there. And I still today, I enjoy, I don't care what anybody says. I think some of the exercises, when done with some understanding, are good communication exercises. And I think that's what ropes a lot of people in, even though apparently it's not his work, that he's kind of duplicated other people's work and put it in together and labeled it and, and did all that. All that aside, I think that's the pinnacle of Scientology. Do the communications course. It'll help you. Okay? And then you graduated. You're an OT. You're now OT.
So the only thing, first of all, how high up the bridge did you get? And then you're saying that, because I know you went pretty deep into this, we'll talk about you meeting Hubbard and what have you. So you're saying that looking back on all this, basically just communication, that's the only thing you got out. I'm joking with you, but that's, I got what you're saying.
I had some really major insights into my life of what they would call long fall blowdowns, LFBDs.
Explain what that means real quick to people.
That means a lot of energy I got in contact with, of negative energy that was repressed deep inside, became looked at, examined, and released. And on this meter called an E-meter, you can actually see, because there's this electrical charge going through you that somehow can read some shifts in your energy field. And that's all we are, is an energy field. And I don't understand it exactly, except I've seen it work. And all I know is, when you see what we call a long fall blowdown, it is observable with your eyes. You see such a shift, as if a huge weight has been lifted and looked at. I've seen it enough time, and I've seen it where, you know, where you could see this charge, which is this negative resistant energy that's kind of built up resistant inside, repressed, denied, shoved into the body, shoved into the cells, and a whole bunch of other things we can talk about. But I've had those experiences. I had those experiences when I found my service fact. It was a mind fucker. I had an incredible, great experience.
Explain to people what's a surfac. What's a surfac?
Oh man, what is? Are you gonna like flunk me if I have too long a comlag here and I take a drink of water?
No, a surfac. Because we're gonna get into a lot of terminology. I try to pull.
You're bringing it out in me, Doug. You're jumping in and asking me these questions, or I wouldn't go into these ideas.
I wouldn't ask you any of this stuff if it was just me and you talking, but people are going to go, what the fuck is a surfac? Very briefly, audience, the surfac is what you handle on grade 4. And these are all the reasons why you, go ahead, Brian. Why you
find a way. That's the dog.
I think
hey, Lucio.
Is he running a surfac right there? Yeah. He's giving you, that's a surfac. Man.
Yeah, I tell you, I think it's really directed at you, Doug. Okay.
I feel that you're projecting and it was actually at you and you're not taking full responsibility for that.
Well, I have to tell you the truth is I took a shower and I think I cleaned away some body thetans and I think they're running free and and now like the little fleas that they are have attacked him and now he's experiencing that. Either that or it's the people coming down this road because I'm up in the mountains and there was just a few people. So he was doing his job alerting his master that there were people probably about 50 yards away with 2 barbed wire fences in between. But he was telling us. But the key is most people should understand something that actually Sigmund Freud brought up of the importance of protecting a part of the mind by attacking other people, making them wrong to make yourself right, to reach or withdraw from certain types of people where you feel either you want to attack, again, you want to be superior, you want to maybe use it as an excuse to get away with something. And I think one of the most famous examples that are used that I think almost any kid can relate to is when you pretended to have a high temperature to get out of school one day as a kid. All of a sudden
these are all the elements that you run out in auditing, and sometimes it goes past life as to why you do the things that you do nowadays. You know, it's very interesting listening to you, Brian, because you're bringing back all these thoughts about, I got a shitload of wins and gains out of it. My only gripe with Hubbard is that, and like you, I went on a search for figuring out that he stole all this shit first, and then you find out much better truths, and it minus the hypnosis and put you in a trance and send you to the registrar and repeat, right? So if Hubbard
let me tell you something. Though. But back in the day, at least where I was,
it wasn't like that, eh?
It wasn't like that.
I heard that.
And it was a very different cycle. And if Hubbard didn't, I think his downfall is he went completely psychotic again. And when in 1952 is when it really begins, where it demonstrates itself in the book History of Man. And then we see that this guy is obviously had a psychotic break.
Which in my book, I show him. You know, he was just on drugs, or he put his son on drugs when he had him.
I didn't know any of that back then.
Well, me neither, man. That's what I'm saying, Brian. If he would have told us that, it'd be like, go fuck yourself, Hubbard.
Or no. You see, that's not
History of Man. That was
wait a minute. No. I would have said, that's pretty far out, man. Can I have some of those drugs and see for myself?
I did. That's what I wanted to ask you, Brian. It attracts so many dreamers and hippies and people that don't have their mind open and go, well, maybe. You know what I mean? Maybe.
Well, no, it's not. it's understanding the psychedelic nature of his experience and the symbolic nature. And that's why I guess I didn't get too crazy about even OT3, because I saw it as a symbol and it was symbolized. And in my mind, I looked at body thetans, which he looks as aliens, and I look at it very differently these days, that they're alien thoughts that have been placed in your mind by others, by your parents. And if you kind of look at it a little different way, and you realize that each of us, the blank slate that we were as children, have all these fucked up, crazy, stupid ideas and limitations and attitudes and you name it, Doug. Okay. And if you think them as an alien idea that needs to be looked at and say, fuck off, asshole, you don't serve me anymore. Okay, goodbye. Okay, I remember when I took you on as an idea and thought you were valuable, but at the time I was heartbroken and yeah, I was angry. And that's why I wanted to, tear their hair out or whatever the case is.
That makes complete sense. I totally agree with what you just said. However, the Xenu story and the galactic warlord and, the 76 billion years ago, and those drawings that you have in your book, by the way, are amazing. He draws out the BTs, the body thetans. Bro, that fucking level literally made me schizophrenic. I thought these motherfuckers were talking at me all night. I couldn't sleep. I had a nervous breakdown outside of AOLA. It drove me insane. Split my personality. But you know what you were saying there, Brian, about like the BT.
But you know what, Doug? I can understand that. And I didn't personally have that experience.
No, not everybody does.
I can easily understand that. And personally, looking back and understanding what I've spent the rest of my life investigating, is I understand why so many OT8s have committed suicide.
Yeah, me too, man.
I understand why so many high OTs get cancer. And we look at, I guess, that even Ron Miscavige has just come out and shared that he's on his last legs. And you think about all the abuse that they've gone through emotionally and physically, and the way that Sea Org members have been treated and at such depraved levels. It's just, it's mind-boggling. And sometimes what boggles me the most is, how the fuck do you not just get up and walk out? I don't understand that, because they just pissed me off once too much. And I just said, fuck you, baby. I said,
I thought that was amazing, man, because I got out in one day too, Brian, but it took somebody dropping a book off where I could see it. Your story was just like, I don't agree anymore, or go. We'll get up to that. But I'm just saying, like, you really were like, weren't you still attached to the tech and like still trying? You didn't know Hubbard was a fraud for a long time, right? And somehow you were.
I didn't know
just
until 6 years ago.
Gonna miss the tech and not have your eternity and all that.
No. You see, because I had this cognition, because I was constantly taking on the Church of Scientology, and I had a very successful group, Dianetics Counseling Group, in West Palm Beach, Florida, and we were more successful than the local org. And and they wanted to close me down by taking all of my clients and bringing them down there so that they would get the income. So I was constantly under different types of what they call committees of evidence.
Yeah.
Okay. I became really very well versed in the technology of Scientology ethics and all of that. And I guess they were preparing me for some other things and other challenges in my life. And in that scenario, I realized that there was going to be a point of me wanting to just let this go. And I had this cognition that, you know what? You can take all my certs, you can take all my friends, but any knowledge that I've gained that's useful from the training I've done, and that was all the way up to Class 9 auditor, HSST case supervisor on flag, ready to go back to St. Hill in England and be the actual regional head CS case supervisor.
Head CS.
And yeah, and I was, and at that time going through my HSST, my teacher was Quentin Hubbard, and we became friends. And he was on an amazing mentor, wonderful mentor. Unfortunately,
is Quentin the one that committed suicide supposedly?
Yes,
and he was gay. He was gay, and his father had some sociopath,
gay or bisexual. I'm not sure, but yeah, and definitely, and I've read a lot since then about him. I didn't know any of that back then. All I know, he was just the nicest guy.
Yeah, and
he was the complete opposite of everyone else, because he was chill, and he was kind, and he was friendly.
The opposite of Hubbard. When he died, his own father's words were something along the lines of, "I can't believe that bastard's caused me this problem." It was like a PR flap to Hubbard when his own son.
Well, isn't that what David Miscavige said when all of a sudden the private eyes watching his father fall, or look like what fell in a supermarket?
I was just thinking about this today.
With parking lot, and all of a sudden they called and said, "What should we do? It looks like your dad just had a heart attack." And David Miscavige said, "Well, if he's going to die, let him die."
Can you believe that, man? That's the end product of Scientology. I call it a sociopath making machine, because irregardless of whether you get stuff out of it, yeah, I did too, Brian, and I had to do a whole reassessment of everything Hubbard lied about. But for me, like your situation, right? You didn't know Hubbard was a fraud. What got me out was I learned in a day that he was a fraud, and therefore I dived down the rabbit hole for 10 years, questioning everything about him, the organization. I learned all about, I'm no expert, but I learned about hypnotism. I learned about the cult and the black magic crap he's into. I wanted to know what that was all about.
Yeah.
And it sent me on the same journey that you did, Brian, because I wouldn't have been interested in any of that stuff unless I got trapped in a cult like Scientology. It's kind of interesting how he sold so much knowledge that in order to get any of your mind or your own self back, for me, I had to study, kind of restudy everything and figured out where he got it. And that experience was like what I went into Scientology for. I kind of look at Scientology like my like maybe it was, dude, I think it's evil, to be honest with you. I think it's the way it's set up. I'm sure it was different, and it was less brutal when you were doing it. Of course it was.
Well, it seems much less brutal, only because of and there is one change that became so major from my observation and study and talking with over the last 6 years since this happened to me. Remember, here over 30 years, everything is fine. There's a great relationship. My daughter's involved in Scientology. She does what she wants. That's her business. I do my life, and I have different schools for complementary and alternative therapies. I've always looked at it as a kind of a stepping stone towards exciting me to this world of mind and spirit. And even though he didn't have the answers, you can see the fragmented parts of things here and there that can, when used properly, without the intention to get you trapped in his hallucinations that come in at OT3. And what happens from there on, and now I'm going to answer your question. I finished up to what would be called OT3X. You used to do OT3, then go to OT7, and then come back and do OT3 again, which they called OT3 expanded. Okay.
Wait, say that again.
And that's as far as I went.
You would go from
you would back in the day, guy. Okay, you'd go up to OT3, then you'd go to OT7, then you'd come back and do OT3 expanded, and then you do OT4, 5, 6, and I guess you do 7 again. There was no OT8 that bad. Who the fuck knows? Why the hell is it?
I've never heard that before, Brian.
Why is OT3 set up that way? Because there's some crazy motherfucker setting it up.
So you go do what's OT7 nowadays, where you audit off all the gazillions.
Well, I don't know.
And you come back.
Wait. Wait. I don't know what OT7 today is, so I can't tell you that. I would imagine.
Oh, I can tell you, it's the body thetans.
Well,
it's all body.
It wasn't,
from OT3 on. It's all body thetans.
Right. I don't remember that at OT7.
Well, it changed.
That's not my recollection.
Right. Yeah. There's been many different
right.
versions, including the OT8 document, which originally was him claiming he's the Lucifer, the light bringer. And then they had to get rid of that because that was bad PR stunt. So I know that the bridge has changed. I know what you're saying is true. I mean, you lived it. I know that he had different variations.
Stop calling it a bridge.
It never
it's a tunnel to hell.
It's a ladder to hell or some shit, right?
It's a tunnel to hell. Look at the cover of my book.
I was just going to
see
say
the cover.
That.
Do you know my illustrator and I? Oh my God!
I mean, cover and
Yeah, I mean, I sit there. I creatively laid out each of the images in the book, and it was really unbelievably amazing to get my illustrator to get the feel and the look and the this and the that. But the cover, most importantly, because I had this vision, and the vision with the dragon, me flying the dragon, coming in, soaring in, and there is Hubbard and David Miscavige, and they're dragging my daughter away into the Scientology hell, and you see the hell, and the colors are there, and it's vivid and everything else. I mean, this took me about 2 years to get it right, okay? And at the time, for those Game of Thrones buffs like myself, you might understand the dragon a little bit.
Indeed.
Are you a Game of Thrones man?
Not totally, but I got the dragon. I thought the cover was awesome. And also, my man, the illustrations. You guys have to see them. They're awesome. The way you depict it as a hell is not for dramatic effect. It's just beautiful, dude. The way that you laid out all those pictures. And it also kind of gave me nightmares, Brian, the first night, because those BTs, like, you imagine. I wanted to say one other thing about this.
Did you have some fleas buzzing around your room? Oh, dude,
if you imagine that that's true, it becomes your reality, dude. And
absolutely,
Brian, another thing on that, bro. He got that's a common. That's a common tradition in all religious traditions. The Gnostics call them the archons, the Christians call them the demons. Dude, it's, to me, I looked at the OT3 way thing as just another form of possession, right? And then you said because of your LSD trips, you saw it symbolically. So maybe the archetypal young figures or something, right? So I think he stole all the ideas, right, Brian? So there's whatever we make of it when we come out of it and find out where he stole it from. Is where we kind of jump off from. But all the ideas, including the body thetans, to me, that's just what the Islamic tradition calls it, the jinn, right? They're made of like these demons, like of smokeless fire. So every religious tradition has the same.
Best. Wait a minute. Pause right there, just for a second. That's the best suggestion you've given since we started this interview. To get some gin. Let me just see if I have any gin here and some tonic. And you don't mind? I just want to stop at that point. Okay, can we bring in some gin and tonic? He brought up the word gin.
I feel like dropping some acid with you right now, Brian. I don't even do acid, but it's
no. See, now if you really want to do it, you do it the right way where I am, and it's legal. You do ayahuasca.
Is it legal where you're at, man?
Of course it is. All over Colombia. I'm in Colombia, South America. Colombia, and I've been living in Colombia and Peru and Argentina for the last 3 years.
I didn't know you were in South America. I thought Colombia, Ohio. Dude, what is the time difference? What time is it right? How did you even get the time right on this call?
Well, because there's these like standard kind of lines that go around the world that break up the world into different segments, and we discuss. You're in California. and I'm 1 hour behind Eastern time, and no, it's easy enough.
What
to
time is it there,
originate?
Man? It's 3:45.
It's 2 hours after you for me. So it's 5:45.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's just starting to cool down, and it will cool down because it's in the low 70s in the daytime. But if you're in the sun, that low 70s equals like low 80s anywhere else.
Okay, man. Don't rub it in.
It's intense because you're up. You're up 6,000 feet. Yeah. Because we're up 6,000 feet.
Yeah, I stopped rubbing it in, Brian. I've been stuck in my Los Angeles apartment surrounded by morons and just going insane. And I would love to have a mountain trip like where you're talking about right now. So keep
Why
that
aren't
to
you doing
yourself,
it?
young man.
Why aren't you doing it?
Because I got to save the planet, Brian. And I got to make
Yeah,
these
but you
YouTube
can.
videos
Why
and
can't
pump
you
them
do
out.
it from here? They have
Just kidding.
Wi-Fi.
I'm going to get the hell out of here soon, dude. I've just been...
Yeah.
I like
Let me
it.
just
This is my home, but I would love to take a vacation and be where you're at.
I walk through the mountains every day. I'm surrounded by green, and every night I listen to the birds. And when it starts to storm and the thunder and the lightning, I put a chair on outside, and sometimes I have a glass of wine. Sometimes I have a joint. I sit back and I relax, and I just watch the sky entertain me with lightning and thunder and rain and this tropical area. And what is more beautiful? And it epigenetically restores every cell in my body, which cheers. Being in a closed-in city-like environment is not healthy any more than smoking your fucking cigarette.
I knew you were going to say that, and I know it's not against your current religious traditions. And
I just saw you really lit it in my face.
Because of Scientology, I'm a smoker.
No, I never said it was.
Brian, I'll repeat the auditing command. I already told you, don't make me jealous, and you go on a diatribe about, that you made me
use your
TR3
and TR4, dude. Come on, a little bit better training on your TR4.
Brian, I totally got that. Was that tone?
See, if you had gone through my class, you would still know it.
Excuse me, young man. How good of a were you, Brian, when you were supervising the TR course, were you a ruthless motherfucker, or were you this nice, cool, kind of relaxed hippie supervisor?
No. I was strong, but no, I was never ruthless. I was always compassionate and work with my students and try and make it fun. I think one of the biggest things when we go back to his study tech is he misses is that it's supposed to be fun. It's not about stats. And
was
unfortunately,
it always about stats, or was it a lot looser?
No, never. It was always about stats. It was about stats, always. And I learned that very quickly. And I am a very good student and a very fast student. And so I became a really nonstop upstat. And I made the teacher and the supervisor look good because I was fast and I would accumulate lots of points. And so I, for the most part, as in my study days and training days and my intern days when I did internships in England on class 4, class 6, then on flag with class 8. And those things I always excelled at. It was never, I personally never ran into a problem, but sometime the org ran into the problem and you got penalized. And that's what happened also. That was kind of a concurrent of events at flag that happened after I had gone through all my training. When I was at St. Hill in England, they sent me to flag, which was a ship, the Apollo, which was the main international headquarters of Scientology, where L. Ron Hubbard lived and did his research and ran an international management teams that really supervised and directed and guided every org around the planet. They were in charge, international headquarters. And that was also their international training for all of their top people that ran in the different regions around the world. So there was like the United States and Canada. There was like St. Hill and all of Europe, which included at the time, if I remember correctly, South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. And so that was going to be my range. And I was going to be the senior case supervisor, and I was doing the training. And that's where I actually met Mike Rinder. Okay. And we didn't have much interaction back then. And that's where I really got to know Karen de Carriere, and she became one of my clients.
You guys were all on the ship.
She was one of
you guys were.
Yeah.
She was one of your what?
Yeah. And one of my
she was one of your
my
what,
pre-clears. I audited her.
No
I audited
shit.
her.
I thought it would
In
be
other
the
words,
other way around because Karen's a class 12.
She is now, but I was much higher back
in
then.
The day. Wow, man. Dude, tell me about it, what it was like on the Apollo when you met Hubbard and when you were doing this training. It must have been absolutely brutal under Hubbard's supervision, right? Or
No,
CSing?
I didn't find it that way. No,
Really?
I didn't find it brutal.
What was it like meeting the old man?
Very off the cuff and very little and very just kind of more like, it's not like you meet him and like you give him a hug and say hello and gee, I'm one of your greatest fans and I've been studying my ass off. It's he's the captain of the ship and you're a lowly kind of, you're not even a seaman because you're really a visitor. I was there as a trainee, even though I went through able-bodied seaman training. That was mandatory. And so they had training because we were on a ship and the ship was constantly at sea and everybody had responsibilities and duties in addition to whatever training you did or whatever job you did. You had your ship functions. Now, some people were full-time on that. Okay. Things like the captain and other members of, I'm sure the engine room, etc. And there was a group that were dedicated to just that, the kind of core. But then everybody else was involved with that. And that meant you kept up cleaning and scraping and repainting and doing everything you need to do to keep a ship that's at sea that's constantly being corrosive from seawater. It's not a gentle environment. And I actually enjoyed all of that up until then something got crazy.
Was there ever any heavy ethics on the ship, Brian? Was there ever any heavy ethics? And did you see any people in the chain locker at this point?
That's what got crazy. Yeah. I never
shit.
saw anybody in a chain locker, and I've heard about it, but I heard about it that it happened before. It wasn't happening at that time that I saw. What happened at the time, the whole org that I was involved in. Now, remember, I'm there as a trainee from out. Right. I was there from a trainee from St. Hill, England. And I was there, and all of a sudden, they created what I saw for the first time, something called the RPF. And all of a sudden, all the work that we were doing was never enough. And I'll never forget this woman named Kathy Karyataki. Kathy Karyataki was the DP, and DP means Department Director of the Department of Processing, and that is the part of the organization, the segment of the organization that delivers the auditing. The auditing is the counseling services in order to help people move up what, well, Doug called the bridge and I called the tunnel. Sometimes you think you're going up, but they kind of get you up till it's kind of like this tunnel at the top that then takes you down 10 times further than you were before. It's
like a slip and slide and a snakes and ladders. You go up a few levels, Brian, then you come down a couple. And it's always cheese, and then it slides over here. Then wait a minute, you have to do an FPRD. Oh, I'm sorry, you have an ethics condition before we can get you onto the OT levels. But wait, we have to do this first. And then, dude, every level is promising the next high. And the exteriorization and all the superhuman abilities that you get into it for, that he promises you. I thought, those were accessible through this technology. And I got to tell you, that Scientology cannot deliver what it says it can deliver. If it could, Brian, we'd still be there. I probably would.
Absolutely.
Pay that kind of money for
I wouldn't mind paying for it if it was there. In fact, what motivated me to go from the beginning classes and onward was meeting with many of the high-ranking Scientology organization officials and them showing me on the gradation, what they called the gradation chart, that the ability that I wanted, which was to be exterior with full perception at will, to be able to create and mock up my world, as he talked about, was there on OT6. And there at OT6 on the gradation chart, it showed it. And she said, now just climb up the ladder and do all these courses and everything, and you pay tens of thousands of dollars and da 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 da. And there it is. And that is the ability, what they call the ability gained.
And each level has one. And each level has one.
Right. And that's what drew me to England from New York to make this. And it just was like, oh, fuck. Can I say that? Can I say fuck?
Oh, you can cuss as much as you want. It's encouraged.
Fucking hey, yeah. But I said, oh, fuck, that's what I want. I'm willing to give it a few years to do it. I've read about this in Buddhism, and I read about this in many of the meditation paths with Buddha, that after a few years of dedication and discipline, that all of a sudden, and this was kind of like my guru and the disciple kind of relationship in a way, and I'm ready to do the work, sir, you know, and I'll polish the brass handles, and I'll do all of the exercise. Namaste.
I'll go to the chain locker. You throw it at me, I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's, you know, that was a hook, and that was them reeling me in, and they reeled me in and reeled me in and reeled me in until I realized not only did you not achieve it, not always was it always in the future it was going to come. It was also this, and I talk about this in my book, Relentless, and I mentioned it. I don't know if you picked it up, but there's a conspiracy. And the conspiracy is that you're not allowed to really talk about what really happened in your sessions and what your real experience was. The closest you get to it is writing your success story. And there you're really not writing it for you. You're writing it to make sure you complete the level and make them happy, and B, to kind of give, maybe they catch you at your very highest moment, that you're at the peak, you're at a peak state, and you write, yeah, everything looks great. I can handle fucking anything. I know who I am.
And you feel like you can. And you feel like you can at the time, Brian.
Yeah,
Brian, when I tested to grade 0, man, I felt like I could legitimately, at that moment when I was super high, communicate with anybody at any time, man. Bring it on. And you know what, Brian? After the hypnosis wears off for a week later, I remember having this realization when I was on like grade 4 or whatever. And I was like, just for a split second, this could have been my opportunity to get out, Brian. I had many, but it didn't work. Just for a split second, I said, because it's having all these problems on grade 4, and it's always the next level that's going to handle it. And I was thinking for 1 second, I was like, dude, I can't communicate freely with anyone. I was on the PTSSP course. I can't talk about Scientology. Like you just said, you can't even share your own actual authentic wins to other people. That's all part of the Orwellian trap, so nobody finds out. Everybody's lying. So it's very clever the way he designed this freaking thing. But that's amazing, Brian. Like you had this high. You attest to it because, you know, you're hypnotized and give you the post-hypnotic suggestion. Yeah, I can actually communicate with anybody. And that moment you feel like you can walk right out the door and do just that. It wears off after a week. You always have to go back and get that. That's why his hypnotism, he was a master hypnotist. That's what he was trained in. I think when you break it down, what you did awesomely in those videos, man, that's what blew me away. I was like, this dude just bonked it right on the head. He was a hypnotist, man, and he used a bunch of other things, but that's what kept you going for that high, and then it'd always wear off, and he'd call it like the sad effect, boil off, or you know what I mean? He always had a new reason to kind of get you back in for that high.
Some of it wore off, Doug, but a lot of it didn't, and when I say a lot of it didn't, I'm talking about the training. And what happens is, from an auditing standpoint, I understand that's how it works. But I guess under the auspices that I got involved is we put more emphasis on the training than the auditing. And the training is where it really took these levels of hypnotism to a whole other level, because the whether it's the Chinese drilling that we did, repeating things over and over again against the wall, or against a dummy, or listening to the lectures, or doing every course, the policy, keeping Scientology working, and being jammed on what those reasons are, and having them so much, and then statisticizing everything.
Right.
It all turned you into a statistic, and you were not Brian. Are you an upstat or a downstat?
Exactly, dude. You broke that down so
Okay.
well on Leah's podcast, man. Talk about that, dude, because I thought it was mind blowing the way you broke
it completely
that down.
it takes you away. It makes you this number, and that number is only good if it supports what is the intention of the numbers of the organization, in whether it's the classroom, whether it's the department of training, whether it's the overall organization. Is you're judged every week by the amount of output that you did, which gets points, which gets grafted on a chart, and that chart either grows month to month, and if it stays the same, you're a downstat. If you did the same as you did last week, okay, you are assigned a condition. I won't get into the names of the conditions, but it's down. It's not up. It's the way you're saying, wait, I'm equal to last week. No, that doesn't work.
That's not how it works in
It has to go up, even just a little. And so you get this whole thing that your whole identity, you're in Scientology, your whole power and value within the organization is whatever function you're achieving, whether it's a student, which is mainly what I did, or it could be bringing in money and closing people and generating income. It could be selling the numbers of books that you sell. It could be the numbers of completions that you have. And there's not anything wrong with knowing that. Nothing at all.
But like you said, Brian,
what's wrong with it is that's all you are.
Yeah, and you can only go up so high.
Right.
That's part of the sociopathic mentality, dude. He calls you a terminal. You're not a human being. It removes your emotions, your heart. You're a terminal. You're a stat. You know, it's just even those words that make you
they are. They're very hypnotic, and
totally.
And it's and they robotize you because of the repetition. Exactly. Repetition, and you don't realize it, of course.
No, especially if you don't. I didn't know any of these things, Brian. I didn't know any basic psychology. I didn't know repetition is mind control. I didn't have any fucking clue, man.
Well, I learned that it was
10 years old when I was sticking around with these TRs.
Yeah, right.
Eventually,
absolutely.
or you afterwards, right, Brian?
I learned it eventually, 20 years after.
Yeah. What if you would have known before? You would have been able to see what was happening, right?
I don't know. You see, I have to be honest, Doug. Mm-hmm. I had a pretty cool experience while inside up until that point. And you know, I was writing music with which was now the piano player for the David Bowie group. I was dating one of the girls in the Incredible String Band. I was going back to the back of concerts. Being in the back of those days with Bowie and those kinds of things and opportunities that I had because I was a Scientologist and Mike Garson was the piano player at the time. And we were writing songs together back then. We were good friends. We still are. He's the most amazing pianist in the world, no question. He left Scientology a long time ago.
I was going to say you wouldn't be friends with him still if he was still in Scientology.
Oh, no, he couldn't be friends with me. I mean, otherwise, he used to be really close friends. I mean, like buddy, best friends with Chick Corea. Chick Corea dumped him on his ass once he left. And all of a sudden, you are now. Oh yeah. And Mike and they were so close. They are two of the greatest, and Chick Corea, one of the greatest all-time jazz pianists. Him being a Scientologist doesn't take that away at all. His talent, his ability. I shut off that he's involved with that. I got to know Chick because of Mike Garson. And he's a wonderful guy. And the fact that he stays in, I don't get it. I used to go to all his concerts as well.
It worked. It's so different. Each person's experience. Some people get out unscathed and have a great time.
I don't know that it works for him.
Well,
I don't know that it works for him that well.
Subconsciously, don't you think, man?
No. Or you're afraid to lose something that you have because he's afraid to lose everything he's built up.
Dude, we all
he
are.
loses so much.
Exactly.
I don't think it's he's just afraid to lose the friends, the groups, the adulation that he gets, the sense of joining. That's a powerful force.
Dude, that's
the sense of joining,
and that's why it was so amazing being inside of it, Brian. And I'm reliving all this stuff because it's amazing when you're in that Truman Show bubble. I talked about in some of the videos, Tom and Kathy Steiner, they were hippie musicians, that we played music, the camaraderie, going for a purpose of saving the planet, how much that can bond you and how incredible it feels. Dude, the hardest part was giving up that high, giving up my friends, I miss that environment, bro. But
that was part of it too.
It's insane. But you don't realize it's insane when you're in it, dude. It's this weird, that's why you got to appreciate it, right?
Okay, Doug, I'm going to open the door to something a little different. I hope I don't shock you.
Dude, nothing you could say could shock me.
A really cool part that I enjoyed about Scientology was all the girls, because I was an upstat and was always doing well, I always had a really great connection with some of the most beautiful girls that were like-minded and wanted to help things.
That is out
and
ethics.
I have to be honest. It was very easy. It was very easy
in the 60s. Unacceptable and totally mind-blowing. I can't believe you just said that.
Well, it was by the 70s by the time I was in Scientology. So the 60s were over and in my rearview mirror.
Right.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a fallout and but I enjoyed that, Doug, and that,
me too.
That paid
chicks in the cult,
a lot of dividends. It paid a lot of dividends, and so what I'm saying is this.
What are you saying, Brian?
The reasons that we stayed involved. Yes, rock slam. You don't know how to turn out the red light. Yes. Okay. And for those out there, a dirty needle means the auditor who's looking at the e-meter while the other person is hooked up to it and is talking about something. Supposedly the way that the needle moves determines what they're talking about or thinking about. And so, because I'm talking dirty, that there's a dirty needle. So there's whatever correlation you want to make.
I never caught that before, dude. That's of course that's what that is. That's hilarious. I never caught that. It basically means what Brian says. You're actually thinking dirty thoughts.
And the worst thing you can ever do is keep holding on to the cans and the e-meter while watching the movie Dirty Dancing. It really screws it up. And don't turn on Pornhub.
Because I was just gonna say, bro, they're absolutely psychotic about. Brian, this might be embarrassing to admit, but dude, I'm sure if you haven't done it yourself, you can relate. I put off masturbating for so long when I was getting auditing because the first damn thing that comes up is, has a withhold been missed, right? And dude, they cave you in so much. To listeners, if you masturbate, it said in Scientology that you're pulling in pictures on your bank or your unconscious mind, and this is a bad thing. So whenever I would masturbate, and other Scientologists have been through this too, they break out the ethics book and they show you that you're out ethics. So I would suppress even jacking off, man, for the longest time, because I didn't want to waste $1,000 on the rudiments, taking up jacking off over and over. Brian, there's a lot of people you may not, I'm not saying this happened to you, but have spent thousands of dollars on the stupidest, most natural sexual thoughts or ideas.
I'm sure.
As a Scientologist, you're so repressed. And by the way, that drives you crazy because not being able to express yourself sexually normally, it drives you fucking insane. So it racks up the bill on the more auditing that you need.
Yeah.
The name of this solar system is Space Station 33. 33. 33. 33. 33. 33. Space Station 33.
And now here is L. Ron Hubbard.
Now, where you take pre-clear after pre-clear after pre-clear after pre-clear, you put them on e-meters, you try to run them, you try to do this, you try to do that, straight on.